Okay, now welcome back to another session, another chapter that we're going to look at is the if, or rather the functions. Yeah, the functions that will come to the if function. So we're going to look at functions. And so in Excel, the other way you can do calculations instead of using formulas, you can also use functions. So well, functions are the easiest way of doing calculations in Excel. So the same function cater for the formulas, just that a function just simply tries to simplify a formula. So when we look at different examples of functions, we have the sum. Sum will calculate the total of the set of numbers. Average, calculate the average set of numbers. We look at max to calculate the maximum value within the set of numbers. Minimum to calculate the minimum value within the set of numbers. Round, today, and we'll look at the if. So these ones, sum, average, and this, we are going to look more of how these work in Excel. So to start with, we had done previously formulas, and we were working in this example. Now we're going to come up with the same answers, results, but this time around using functions, not formulas. So when you look at this, is a formula. When you look at this is also a formula. So how are you going to start? We can also delete this. So when you want to add the formula, you will be come here and write equal the formula for adding sorry, if you want to come up first, total price is, so if you want to come up with a product of this and this, remember in multiplication you won't get products, but you can is equal to this times this, as we did, then enter. So you can write a simple formula for the product. Now for add, you come to equal, then you write sum bracket. Now you can either, if you want to specifically add two numbers or two cell addresses, you just simply click here, then comma, then click there, then close the bracket. You click the cell address C2 and D2. Now this means you're adding this address and this address, so it means you're summing up the two addresses. So the function we are using here is sum C2 and D2, then hit enter. So you can autofill the rest of the cell addresses. Then now for subtract, if you want to subtract this from this, the cell address C from cell address D, this time and you still use the sum function. Turn and write equal, then sum, open bracket. Now this will be, it will be this comma. Remember when we are summing up and we want to subtract, there is no function like subtract this and this, but instead you'll use a negative this address. So this simply means that you're adding D2 and a negative C2, which means it's D2 minus this, but you're summing. Remember, when you add a positive and a negative, you end up with the same result as a positive number minus the other number. So something like this. This is if you have this 6 minus 2 is equivalent to 6 plus negative 2. Get it? Or even if you do away with the brackets, but it's the same. So it is equivalent to this 6 minus 2 is equal to 6 plus 2, which is the sum that we were talking about. Sum of 6 and negative 2. So that's why we didn't have the other formula for subtract, and this is how we do it. Then you hit enter. Then the other thing is, if now for the multiplication, what we could do, we can have a function which is equivalent to equal product, sorry about that, product of this and that. Oops, this, then comma, and that, then close bracket. So we have the product. Product means multiplication of this times that, to get the answer. So for you, some of you might ask, how about why don't we have a multiplication function? We have it, it's called product, and this is sum. Then subtract still remains sum, but the number that you're subtracting from becomes a negative. Rather, the number that is being subtracted becomes a negative. So now we come to division. Now, division, you'll come up with, do you have division? No. Now, what you do here, because we divide, when we are dividing, we divide two numbers. Yes, we always have two numbers, so that's why we say divide the higher number by the smaller number. It can be the other way around, but normally division goes hand in hand with two numbers. Even subtraction goes hand in hand with two numbers. You have a bigger number and you want to subtract a smaller number. So that's why in Excel you won't find functions like for subtract and division, because we are dealing with two numbers. But if you have a product, add, rather sum, Excel assumes you have more than two numbers to add and more than two numbers to multiply. So division, you just simply use the formula like this one, divide by, like there we did the other time, this one, hit enter. So we're dividing this, divide by this, the total price divided by the quantity. Now some of you may be wondering now how we can sum up all these ones without having to add one by one, adding one on the other. So what we do, come here, right, type equal, then write sum, then you open brackets, then you click on this first cell address, then you drag down up to the last cell address. So it will show you it is summing from F2 to F10. Close the bracket and hit enter. Then you might be wondering how I can get the average of this. So if I type average here, and maybe I bold this, so the average of this whole column, you calculate it, you write a function equal average, you double click in this from here up to here. So you see how functions simplify life, because in average you would go count numbers 1 2 3, add one by one, so which could take a lot of time. But if you simply use a function here, it will just come up with 6 as the average. You can bold this to separate it from the numbers in the columns. So that is the average. So we have functions. If we go back to we have max, we have mini, we have round. So let's look at these max and mini. The rest you can look at them later on in your free time. So if you want to find the maximum number here, for example, if you want to know the maximum number, the maximum price here, come and you type equal max. Sorry about that. Equal max, the max number from this cell address D2 up to D10. What's the bracket then? So the maximum number is 343. As you can see within all these values, we have this as the maximum number. Then minimum number we can have, so we can separate this. I control that and then put it down here. So max, this is maximum number. Then we can also have the minimum number. So the minimum number still will equal minimum mean number from this up to that plus then it. So as you can see, the minimum number is 5,000 and the maximum is 3,300. So now the other thing we need to look at is we look at nested functions. So you may wonder what nested functions. So if we remove this, I can give you an example on nested functions. What do you mean by nested functions? Well, if you have, for example, if you want to have, let's say, 10, let's say 10% of 20,000, 10% of 20,000. If I have 10% of 20,000 and I want to add it to, let's say, 5,000. So mathematically, 10% means 10% times 20,000, which will give me 2,000. Hope you're right, 2,000. Then if I get 2,000, then add it to 5,000. Then this one I'll get 7,000. So this means you can use a nested function, and this is a nested function. And what do we mean by a nested function? Nested function as in form of if this 10% times 20,000 means this means you have product of 10%. So 10%, if for beginners you can have 10 divided by 100, then comma, and so inside you have a function, then comma, sorry about that, because we are seeing this is a plus sign, it adds this and that. So this means we have sum, inside we have product of 10% of that, which is 10% then 20,000 in your close, then comma 5,000 in your close the bracket. So this is what this means, that if you use a function to come up with the result of this, you'll have summing up the product of this, which is the product of 10% and 20,000, and then this whole content that is in this bracket, and 5,000. So you have to get 7,000 by all cases. So let's try this out in Excel. 10% of 20,000 plus, so if we have 10%, now normally we'll come to that. 10% means divide by 100. Now this is 10%. You can double click inside and edit. This is 10% of 20,000, then plus 5,000. So remember, we want our Excel to first come up with the 10%. Was it 10% or 20%? Yeah, 10%. Then plus. The reason as to why I add these brackets is that I want Excel to first calculate this 10% of 20,000 and then add it to 5,000. So you hit enter. Oh, sorry. I don't put equal sign. Equal signs. Yes. So you have 7,000 as our answer when we calculated it on paper. So now we want to use functions. Now use a function. And how do you use a function? Because this is a formula. So now how are we going to use a function? So we're going to use a function of equal, then we're going to start with sum because we want to add the product to 5,000. So the product of 10 divided by 100, then oops, so sorry about that. We want equal to the sum of bracket. Now we're going to open another bracket inside to separate the percentage. 10 divided by 100, and what else is the 5,000 of 20,000 rather. Then we will we forgot to write product here, product. So sum will add up the product of 10%, which is 10 divided by 100, and 20,000, and then with the product of this and this should be adding to 5,000. Should be adding 5,000. Then inside this we separate the 10% again, and we put 20,000. Functions can be a little bit complex, but they are the easiest. So we have some product of, inside we have, this is the 10%, 10 divided by 100, and 20,000. Now this is only the product of the two numbers, the two formulas, and then we add the product to 5,000. So we'll have to get the same answer as 7,000. So those are what we call nested functions. But for easier purposes, nested function, you can follow this example in our notes. Nested function. So we will look at this when we come to the if function. If function is quite a big tutorial, but we'll look at that when we come to the if function. So we'll look at, up next will be the if function. Up next is the if function. We'll look at how to use. So if function, we look at also if function, we look at and then function, all functions. All functions. So thank you for watching. We are going to look at that other part in this continuing tutorial.